Andres from AA Sports. Welcome to this Sports Passion Project channel. Ladies and gentlemen, the FIFA Arab Cup concluded on December 18th with 16 of the best Arab football nations across both Africa and West Asia competing in the tournament. Here are every team's grades for their performance in the 2025 FIFA Arab Cup. Palestine, A-. For a team and country that has faced so much hardship right now with the conflict between Palestine and Israel and the devastation from the war that Israel seems to be dragging out right now, the Palestinian national team would have just been happy if they were able to qualify for the tournament. Well, not only did Palestine beat Libya to qualify for the tournament, but they were able to top Group A against a Qatar team that is back-to-back Asian Cup champions, a Tunisia side that still has much more talent than them despite only bringing 9 of their 18 players that will also play in AFCON, and a Syrian team who were also competitive in this tournament. While they only won 1 game and drew their other 2 games in the group stage before being eliminated in the quarterfinals, for all things considered, this team overachieved. Congrats to Palestine on representing their people and country well in this tournament. Syria, B. I'll say something similar to what I said about Palestine for Syria. I thought they also overachieved given they were not favorites to advance out of this group. They played as expected versus Palestine, but had 2 impressive performances versus what were seen as the 2 best teams in the group, scoring in a 1-1 draw versus Qatar and winning against Tunisia. While they lost in the quarterfinals to Morocco, a team that is simply better than them right now, they kept that game very competitive and only lost 1-0. Overall, a performance that the Syrians can hold their heads high about. Tunisia, D grade. Granted, they did not have their entire A-team in this tournament, as Tunisia's A-team will be competing in AFCON, which just began a couple of days ago. However, their roster did include 9 A-team players, with 3 of them just recently earning their spots on the team based on recent performances, including their performances in this tournament. With that, it is worth noting that Tunisia was experimenting a little bit in this tournament and seeing which players can potentially play their way onto the main roster for AFCON, the World Cup next year, and be part of the team in the long term. However, your opponents play against whichever version of your team shows up on the field, and even though Tunisia was experimenting and didn't have their full A team, in terms of their player pool, this team was still seen as a much stronger team that was expected to finish at least second in the group and advance to the elimination rounds. But they didn't do that. That 1-0 loss to Syria was massively underwhelming, and they got the honor of once again reminding the football world that 2-0 is the most dangerous score in football, as they blew a 2-0 lead to Palestine in the second half to end up drawing 2-2 in a game they should have won. Not a good look for Tunisia, where they will hope their full A-team roster has a much better AFCON campaign than what we saw from their national team in this tournament. Qatar, F. The offense did not show up at all and was almost non-existent, only scoring 1 goal in the tournament versus Syria, and the defense was absolutely atrocious. They conceded 3 second-half goals to Tunisia and could not close out a game to hold onto a draw or win to save their lives, conceding an own goal in stoppage time versus Palestine and a goal in the 90th minute versus Syria. Like, what the hell was that, Qatar? For a team that entered this tournament as the current back-to-back champions of the Asian Cup, as well as the host nation for the second straight time, Qatar, who is set to be the host nation for the next 2 editions of the tournament, Qatar, who had massive home field advantage with their fans turning out in high numbers, who brought their A-team with players like Akram Afif, Abdulaziz Atem, Michel Barsham, and Tariq Salman, finished last without winning a single game and went down in the group stage. Unbelievable. It was absolutely abysmal from Qatar. And look, while I get that it was a convenient and correct decision for FIFA to decide that the first 4 editions of the Arab Cup following the tournament being brought back by FIFA will be held in Qatar because infrastructure-wise, the stadiums there are still pretty new, being built and used for the last World Cup and AFC Asian Cup. After this abysmal performance, no. Qatar does not deserve such hosting rights, nor do they deserve to have such support or fan turnout at the stadiums when this tournament is played again in 2029. Qatar may have won back-to-back Asian Cups, but they looked like frauds in this tournament. And there are serious red flags about this team with the World Cup this next summer. If they play like this in the summer, they're not going to last long in the World Cup. Oh yeah, they're probably going to go down in the group stage. Yikers. Next, we got the national team, which won the tournament. The 2025 FIFA Arab Cup champions, Morocco. And this is an easy A+ grade. And what makes this even crazier was how this wasn't even their A team. Like, we won't see any of these players in AFCON. And there were 11 other players who are currently competing with European clubs in their prospect pool that weren't called up for either this tournament or AFCON. This was their C team, made up of mostly domestic league players from Morocco, and winning the tournament still wasn't a problem for them. It was not a problem for Morocco. They finished first in Group B with 7 points. They didn't lose any of their group stage games. They beat Syria in the quarterfinals, put up a dominating performance versus the UAE in the semifinals, and with Osama Tanane scoring arguably the goal of the tournament in the first 5 minutes of the final with an incredible strike from Morocco's own half of the field, followed by 2 goals from Hamdallah, they were able to beat Jordan to win their country's second Arab Cup. Wow. While the final did go into extra time, let me correct myself there. While the final did go into extra time and Morocco may not have dominated in every game, the fact that they can still win this tournament where many of the Arab nations in the AFC, like Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they did bring their A teams, it shows just how incredible Morocco's player pool is right now. From their star players in Europe, the players in Morocco's domestic league, the prospects who recently won the U20 World Cup, the coaches and the federation, this is Morocco's golden generation. This is why Morocco is favored to win the AFCON, which they are hosting right now, and they just won the opening game of the tournament versus Comoros. They are competitive now. They will be very competitive in 2026 and in the long term. It is truly incredible what the Royal Moroccan Football Federation has built, and I look forward to seeing more from this team. Saudi Arabia, B+. Saudi Arabia lost their third and final group stage game versus Morocco, where they simply lost to a better team with a obviously better player pool right now. But outside of that, they won their other 2 games in pretty convincing fashion and then got the best of a competitive Palestinian team in the quarterfinals. Midfielder Mohamed Kano, in particular, had a very good tournament, scoring 3 goals, while a rising Jordan national team eliminated them from the tournament in the semifinals. The tournament was an overall positive for Saudi Arabia. A lot of good things to take away for them from this tournament. Oman, C+. Honestly, their performance was as expected in this tournament. They lost 2-1 versus Saudi Arabia in a game where they were mostly having to defend. They got a 0-0 draw versus Morocco, which isn't really bad given how good Morocco is right now. And while they beat Comoros, who they were better than, it was still too little too late as the negative goal differential was too great of a margin to come back from. They were as expected, not the best team by any means, but also not the worst team in the tournament. Comoros. Yeah, this one's an F, for sure. Comoros won the award for being the worst team in the tournament, unfortunately. Their offense was competitive and they scored goals in each of their 3 group stage games, but their defense was extremely flawed at best. They conceded 8 goals in the group stage and finished last in Group B with a goal differential of -5. Ouch. This was nothing positive for Comoros, as this was their A team, which was playing in this tournament to try to build up momentum for AFCON 2025, which started just a few days after the Arab Cup concluded. They did not do that. They did not build any positive momentum at all. Their defense got exposed, and after just now losing 2-0 versus Morocco in the opening game of AFCON, it looks like the Arab Cup was a terrible preview for how Comoros would likely struggle in AFCON. Jordan, A+. Ali Olwan, take a bow. Olwan was the top goal scorer of the tournament with 6 goals and was the heart and soul of the offense as he led Jordan to their first ever Arab Cup final. Yazan Al-Naimat, Abu Taha, Said Al-Rosan, Mohamed Abu Hashish, Abu Srirak, and Nizar Al-Rajdan also scored goals in the tournament, and offensively, this Jordan team was functioning on all cylinders. After scoring a hat-trick to secure his country's first ever participation in the FIFA World Cup and being brilliant in this tournament, Ali Olwan will be a player to watch for Jordan in 2026. This team is in good form right now and building up a lot of positive momentum. Great to see for a team that will be making their World Cup debuts in 2026. UAE, the United Arab Emirates, C+ grade. The UAE finished second in Group C and were eliminated in the semifinals. But given there are so many naturalized players on this team that were recruited specifically to boost the national team's quality and level of play, their performance in this tournament feels very underwhelming despite making it to the semifinals. Honestly, they should just reconstruct from the ground up and take the time to go through the multi-year process of improving their youth development and homegrown football programs. After failing to qualify for the 2026 World Cup and finishing second in Group C of the Arab Cup and failing to be more convincing and win the tournament, all that was learned was that Emirati football is honestly in a very down bad state right now. And recruiting a bunch of naturalized players is just putting a band-aid on a bleeding wound that clearly needs stitches. Egypt, D. Granted, this Egyptian team that competed in the Arab Cup was not their A team, and they will be focusing on the AFCON tournament more, which just started. However, you play with the team that you bring to the tournament, and given that Egypt is historically seen as one of Arab football's heavyweights, having won this tournament before and having the most AFCON titles as well, for Egypt to go down in the group stage in front of their fans who turned out in quite good numbers is disappointing. After barely getting a draw result versus Kuwait and the UAE, and then losing to Jordan to fall in the group stage, it seems that their player pool from the Egyptian Premier League is not the same as it was in the past. And now for the final team in Group C, Kuwait. I'll give them a C. They managed to get a respectable 1-1 draw in their opening game versus Egypt. As for the other 2 games they lost to teams that were simply better than them. But hey, I respect them for being willing to accept their current level of play and still try to build up with their homegrown talent instead of trying to cut corners to boost their national team by naturalizing a bunch of players like the UAE has done, or getting caught cheating in the process of naturalizing players like Malaysia did. Algeria, B. Just like Egypt and Morocco, it is also worth noting that only 4 players from this team that were competing in the Arab Cup will be playing for Algeria in AFCON. So this was not their A team. But like I said, for Egypt, you play with the team you bring to the tournament, and the opposition plays against the team that shows up on the field. And overall, with that in consideration, Algeria's team played well. They topped Group D with 7 points. Adil Boulbina and Redouane Berkane both had very good tournament and were the main goal scorers. And while they did lose to the UAE in the quarterfinals, give this team credit. They made the UAE sweat in that game, taking it all the way to the 8th round of penalties, where Algeria just simply ended up on the unlucky end of the penalty shootout. But overall, a good performance from this Algerian team. Iraq, B. They weren't the best team in Group D, but still managed to finish second in the group to advance to the knockout stage in convincing fashion, with Mohamed Ali having a couple of very good games for the team. They did lose in the quarterfinals, but losing to a rising Jordan national team in a 1-0 loss where they were still competitive is not really bad. Overall, Iraq had a solid Arab Cup campaign. Bahrain, B-. True, they didn't make it out of the group stage, but they also didn't finish last in the group either, getting a 3-1 win over Sudan in their final group stage game. They won a game. They didn't finish dead last. The teams they did lose to, I think, were fair. They lost to better teams. So respectable for all things considered from Bahrain, which has a smaller player pool. And now, last and least, Sudan. And I say last and least because I am giving Sudan an F grade. Sudan had 18 of their 18 players that we will see in AFCON competing in this Arab Cup against the B or even C teams of Algeria and a weaker Iraq national team, at least on paper. And they finished last in the group with a -4 goal differential. While it is possible that Sudan was just using the Arab Cup as preparation games for AFCON, this is nothing positive for them given they did not build any positive momentum from this tournament that they can carry with them for AFCON. And given they could not beat Algeria without their main players in the Arab Cup, if I were a Sudan national team fan right now, I would be very worried given that they will now have to face Algeria's actual A team in just a couple days' time in their first game of AFCON. Not a good look for Sudan. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are my grades for every team in the 2025 FIFA Arab Cup. And for an overall tournament grade, I'm going to give this tournament an A-. You know, I think this tournament was getting a little bit overshadowed by the fact that AFCON began just a couple days after this tournament was being concluded. And, you know, some of these teams didn't bring their main players specifically to save them for AFCON. But overall, I think this tournament's kind of become like a hidden gem of international football. I do wish that the tournament, that FIFA didn't CONCACAF it. You know how in the CONCACAF Gold Cup, most of the games are just always held in the United States and they don't really rotate to other countries to host the tournament. I think FIFA may have made a little bit of a mistake here in that regard. I do wish that for the 2029 edition, a new country would get to host it because so far, it's the Arab Cup. After it has been brought back, has been very, very successful. And even though some of these teams didn't bring their A team, overall, the quality and entertainment, the excitement of the football that was played and produced on the field, it was still, it didn't diminish. It was still a very exciting tournament. The Arab Cup final, you know, look it up on YouTube, look up the highlights. The final was absolute cinema. Overall, an A-grade tournament. Fan attendance as well looks to have slightly improved as well. So overall, a very good tournament. And yeah, good luck to the teams that will be competing in AFCON. And for the teams, for the Arab nations in the AFC, you know, let's hope that their players can build up some positive momentum at the club level for the World Cup. But that will be all for this video, guys. Leave a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what your grades for every team would be. Whether you agree with my take or whether you disagree, put your grades in the comments below. Also, feel free to drop your prediction for who you think will win the AFCON as well. Very interesting to see. You got to imagine after what we saw from Morocco that they're a top favorite to win AFCON. Will be very interesting to see. So with that, leave those thoughts in the comments as well. The 49ers just won tonight as well on Monday Night Football versus the Indianapolis Colts, which means, you guessed it, 49ers content will be back, especially given they just officially sealed their spot in the NFL playoffs. So yeah, stay tuned in for more NFL content. Stay tuned in for more football content, international football content, as well as other content that analyzes and discusses the sports world as a whole. With that, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.